So welcome everyone to the May Healthcare Tug. I'm pleased to welcome you all. And today you may be wondering why we have a blue Scottish themed Health Tug slides. That's in honour of one of our speakers who is from Scotland and is presenting on his birthday. But we can share that in a moment. So just to share our speakers today, we have first up Why Where Matters by Alan Walker and Anya Ahern. Fair to say we've got a world-class speaker lineup today, so we're really thankful to have Alan and Anya with us. And as I said earlier, a massive, massive thank you for Alan. I'm sure there are things you'd far prefer to be doing on your birthday, probably involving alcohol in the sun. But we're really grateful for you taking the time to present today. After Alan and Anya, we have How to Leverage the Community Forums by Tableau's Patrick Byrne. Hopefully a number of you will know Patrick for all the great work he does in the community. And thank you, Patrick, for joining us today to help us leverage the power of the forums. And then after that, there will be, excuse me, a live Q&A with our Healthcare Tug hosts and our speakers. So just to introduce our Healthcare Tug organisers, I am Simon Beaumont. I don't work in healthcare anymore, but I did for about 15 to 20 years, implemented Tableau in an NHS trust in the UK and remain incredibly passionate about our healthcare community in Tableau and the difference Tableau can make to the treatment that we give patients. So really honoured to continue to be leading the Healthcare Tug and to work alongside Nicole, who can hopefully come off mute and just introduce herself.
Thank you, Simon. I'm Nicole Lohr. I've been in healthcare for 15 years and been actively using Tableau for about 3.5 years. And I feel honored to be working alongside Simon, chairing this Health Tug.
Thank you, Nicole. So a couple of things before we start and get into the main event. Just a quick reminder that we do have a Healthcare Tug community page on the Tableau forum. That is also where we post the actual recording of today. So today will be recorded and available on the healthcare page on the forums. Thanks to the fantastic work that Jordan and her team do, that's usually available within about 24 to 48 hours. But that's also, more importantly, where you can join in the conversation and engage with your fellow Health Tug community members. So please do post on there, ask questions, and start the debate with your fellow community members. Just lastly today, we just wanted to celebrate the great work that goes on across healthcare within the Tableau community. And one of the ways we wanted to do that is to showcase the recent healthcare-related Tableau Public Visitor Days. So these are all of the healthcare-related visits that have been chosen by Tableau Public as Visitor Day going back for the last 6 or 7 weeks. So first up, we have the opioid prescribing rates across the US by the APM Research Lab. Next, we have Visualize No Malaria, which I'm sure you're all very aware of by PATH and the work that Jonathan Drummy is doing to support them. Next up is an arthrosis viz, which was actually part of Project Health Viz via Zinera. After that, we have the ketogenic diet effects by Sabrina. And last but not least, we have health risks that are facing Ohio by Front Health. So we just want to take a moment to celebrate that, say well done to all of the authors, but also just to shine a light on the fact that Tableau Public has got some outstanding healthcare-related visits and is a great source of inspiration. So I thoroughly recommend everyone checks it out and follows the authors that can help inspire you in the future. So that's enough of us. Just to hand straight over to Nicole, who can introduce Alan and Anya.
Thank you, Simon. We have Anya Ahern and Alan Walker here today. They're going to present Why Where Matters. They're going to show us how they apply real-world use cases. They'll showcase example dashboards across key verticals such as healthcare, government, finance, NGOs, retail, logistics, and telecoms. Alan is an engineer at Mapbox. It is his birthday today. Happy birthday, Alan. Alan contributes to Mapbox's mission, building the live location platform for a hyper-connected and automated future. Alan Ahern is the founder of DataBlick. She has been long a source for serious data wrangling and aesthetics. Blending her background in economics and product design, Anya specializes in creating dashboards that are as useful as well as beautiful. And I can contest to that because I've worked with Anya on some of the dashboards for the organization that I'm working for. So thank you both, Alan and Anya. We'll turn it over to you.
And Anya, just before you start, can I also say you're wicked with a t-shirt gun when you're at Tableau conference. So anyone going to Vegas, make sure you check it out.
Well, I'm wearing one, but I can't start my video because the host has stopped it. So you can all see one. Anyhow, sweet. You all hear me?
Sounds good.
All right, cool. All right, can you see my screen?
Yep, you can see your screen.
Right, cool, all right. Yay. Let's see. I'm just gonna hit play. Sorry. All right, so we are here today to talk about why where matters. And this is actually, Nicole, this is your healthcare facility. So we put a star on the map because we always like to start with putting dots on the map and then building context around those dots. We've already been introduced, so here we are in cartoon format. It's totally what we look like. And to start off the talk, I kind of want to talk about data that we usually have access to. And so oftentimes we know a little bit about the who in our analysis. We know maybe a customer has a patient ID number, we might know their gender and their age, but usually not so much about the customers. We tend to know what it was that that customer did, what the transaction was that we're trying to monitor or analyze, whether or not they bought something or ate out. So we know a little bit about the what. And we also tend to know a little bit about the when. We know the time of day maybe that that transaction occurred, and we can understand the customer behavioral pattern if they tend to do these things maybe on a weekly basis or every Monday morning at 9 a.m. So we know a little bit from our native data about the who and the what and the when. But the second that we put that dot on a map, there is this treasure trove of data that most people don't even understand or are aware of is there that we can use to enhance our analysis. And so the kind of the talk that Alan and I are going to talk about today is how to, once you've placed that dot on a map, enhance your analysis with all this additional information, thereby allowing you to have a much richer understanding in your analysis. So our first one, since this is a healthcare tug, we're going to talk about using that where, that understanding of location data, to really build better connections between our healthcare facilities and the communities that we're trying to serve. Okay, and also maybe try and enhance our product offering or better understand the needs of our community, our healthcare patients, based on our new understanding of that location data and what we can glean from it. So each one of our talks will start, each one of our segments will start with a dot on a map. And our first one, our healthcare one, we're going to go through in detail, so it'll take us a while, and the other ones we're going to speed up a little bit. So this first dot on a map is actually a healthcare facility in Maui, Hawaii. Why not go somewhere glamorous, right? And Alan, I'm going to let you start with this one.
Yeah, sure, Anya, thank you. So last year, Microsoft did something very special for people with maps, and they released and open sourced every single building in the United States as a GeoJSON that you can import straight into Tableau. They've also extended this to Canada. And it's super cool because what this means is for the first time, you can access where every single patient lives, whether that's the United States, whether that's Canada, whether that's the UK. That means that what we can do is instead of just drawing dots on your map, you can associate where people live. And what that means is that we don't need to aggregate our data anymore. We don't need to do things just with zip codes or postal codes or states or regions or counties. Now we can get down to the building level. So just to give you an example of this, we focused in on an exercise for all of the buildings in Hawaii. And as you can see, this data is super, super rich. There's 250,000 buildings here in Hawaii. So what we were able to do is to take this detail and then draw a map of every single healthcare facility to every single building. Therefore, what we're able to do is start working out a lot of distance metrics. But to do that, what you need to do is to get access to the roads and the road networks. Now, in the US, we have these tiger shapefiles from the US Census Bureau. The UK, you've got access to open data as well, so you can get all the roads. And you also have access to OpenStreetMap as well, which lets you get all of these roads downloaded. And as you can see from Hawaii, we've got 45,000 road segments, which means that there's an awful lot of permutations about how people actually travel from their house to the nearest health facility. How would we actually go about doing this process, though? So we love ALTERYX. We just think it's the bomb, because what it lets us do is drag and drop all of this kind of analysis to be able to do exactly what we need. And in ALTERYX, what we can do is we can access Mapbox APIs, such as the Directions API, so that we can just have a list of buildings and addresses and a list of healthcare facilities, and then just do a from to, and it works out the actual route that it would best take, the best, fastest route to go from your house to where the nearest health facility is. Now, there's some other things to do. You'll see on this list, we've got Mapbox Buildings Plus, and what that is basically we put the OSM buildings from OpenStreetMap and the Microsoft building footprints together and join them together so that we get the best of both worlds. And then we have a map matching API, which basically takes the middle of the building and matches it to the nearest road. So it always means that you get a joined connection. The geocoding API is absolutely self-evident. What it does is it can take an address and give you a latitude and longitude, or you can take a latitude and longitude and it'll give you an address. And then lastly, the Mapbox ISOCHRONE API, which we'll explain later, but basically what that does is it works out the amount of time it takes to get from somewhere to somewhere else. So what we did was we used ALTERYX, and what you're seeing in this dashboard is for one island in the Hawaii chain, you can see right now that there's the distance between the health facility and the buildings. So you can see here, this is Oahu, and it's worked out every single health facility, and you can see the distances between all the buildings and all the health facilities, and then it ranks them in order. On the chart, though, what you'll see is there's a difference between the amount of time it takes, the distance between the building and the health facility in a straight line and the difference in road mileage. And here you can see with the detail to explain it, because of the geography of Hawaii, what you find is that in urban areas, the straight line, or as the crow flies miles distance, is a lot closer to the actual road miles. However, when you get out into the mountains, those people have to travel a lot longer than they would do as if it's a straight line. And that means that there's a big difference between those two. And it's really important, therefore, to start using the road mile metric distance rather than just a straight line. So what this dashboard is showing is that we worked with Stroudwater, and they asked us, could we do every single building to every single health facility? There's 226 health facilities currently in Hawaii. So what we did was we mapped out every single health facility, and then we worked out how many buildings were within a certain distance, so that we know what the catchment area is of that health facility. Is we're asking a very simple question, how accessible is that health facility from any building? And the detail here that you can see, again, so every dot in Tableau represents a building, and you can see the health facility over on the right here, which should be the eastern coast. And that extends all the way out to the right. But the important bit here is there are a couple of red dots on the western coastline there. Those cannot be accessed by the road. So those are buildings that are either really remote, or they're simply nowhere near the road network. Those would be patients that I would classify at risk, simply because if there were people living there, then they are just going to take a long, long time to get to any health facility, regardless of where it is.
Cool. So Alan comes home and shows off all these delightful black maps with neon colors. And I say, well, that's great, but what is the use case? And so we hashed it out, and we came up with this concept of the golden hour and the platinum 10, which is simply if you can get patients to your facility within a certain range of time, then you're much likely to have greater success in being able to treat them and make sure that they are stable. And based on this new use case and really trying to get patients there within under the golden hour, or hopefully within the platinum 10, I looked at the crow flies and the distance miles and said, yeah, but have you ever been on a road in Hawaii? And this is a picture of the road to HANA, and it might only be 80 miles to get from the main city out to HANA, but it will take you about 4 to 5 hours to drive the road because it's so curvy. There's oftentimes single lanes. And so we needed to actually up the analysis and actually add in the drive time. And so we could really see, and here's just a focus of kind of downtown in Maui, near that one health facility, and looking at the duration in minutes that it takes. So not just the distance traveled, but how long it actually would take you to drive there, or for the patient to drive to your facility. Helen, this one's yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we did to do this was use the Mapbox ISOCHRONE API. And what it's doing is it's calculating 3 sets of durations, not necessarily distance. So you can see that white cluster in the detail there. Those are all the buildings that can be reached within 10 minutes. And there's about 3,000 buildings. Further out, up to 60 minutes, there are 24,413 buildings. But the vast majority of buildings for this North Hawaii Community Hospital are well over 60 minutes. And you can see that there's 65,000 buildings that cannot get to that health facility by car in under 60 minutes.
Cool. And so then, being concerned for these patients that have a hard time getting there, we wanted to understand, well, who might these patients be who are at risk? And so we looked towards the American Community Survey data, which is kind of the census data. And you can see there's, here's just a screenshot. I'm bringing it into Q just to look at it, but there is information on who might be residing in these buildings based on tons of different things, whether it be language, marital status, income. And I made this little kind of GIF of just like starting to scroll through all the possible fields. And you can see I've barely started scrolling. And there's just so many things that you can search on to enhance your analysis. Once you understand these buildings, you can now understand, well, who is it that lives in these buildings? And so taking that community survey data, we created a dashboard that looks at the buildings, and then we create estimates for these potentially vulnerable patients. And so we get an estimate of the population, the breakdown of that population, and in this case, we just chose a few sample metrics. So we looked at gender and age, the languages spoken at home, so that we could better accommodate the patients if they weren't Native American speaker or Native English speakers, and also potentially household income. We could have brought in health insurance, any number of those demographics that we just saw. And then we can zoom in and look at those demographics by those that are over, in this case, it was just filtered on who's longer than 80 minutes to get from the facility. And so we can get a better understanding of who these patients are that we need to target, because they're gonna have a harder time getting to us. And it would have been taken a longer time to get there. And so they might have needs that are more critical, or we might look at ways to better serve them so they don't have to come to our facility as often. And so we've built these beautiful dashboards showing our breakdown of who our patients are and our patients at risk, but we haven't actually even yet brought in our own healthcare data, right? We know who our patients are, so we know things about a certain number of the people that are in those buildings. And so now we can look at those patients who are over 60 minutes away, and we can understand if they have specific history or specific conditions that we can then try to proactively meet their needs so they don't need to come to our facility as often, because we understand they're at risk. How might we better serve them? And so here is just kind of a breakdown also of looking at your facility. So here we have a facility again in the center of Maui, and then there might be another facility. And so we can kind of understand populations who might be better served by different facilities in our area or in our region. And then because we have our own patient data, we might be able to understand drivers that bring people to our facilities. So here we're looking at potentially, we see a building and we don't have any patients that are registered to that building, and yet they're very close to our facility. Why is it, or what are their potential needs, or what are the demographics about them that they are not using our facility, even though they're much closer to us? And on the right-hand side, we might see someone that's really far away from our facility and closer to another one, and yet they still make the drive, or they still make the effort to come to our facility. And we might try and understand what the drivers are for that customer loyalty or retention, and understand, is it because of specific specialties that we offer or insurance needs? So we can really try and figure out how to best serve and accommodate our patients based on our new understanding of their needs, which we have because we added in location data. All right, and that was our first healthcare example. And now we're going to talk, this is also, we presented this at the Cincinnati TUG, but it also seemed applicable to health. We're talking about kind of the heroin and opioid epidemic. It's particularly prevalent in Cincinnati. So again, we wanted to use this open data and this building level data and mash in some other information to really flesh out this picture now that we understand location information. So Alan, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Anya. So with Cincinnati, they have really excellent open data available on their city portal. And what I found was by mashing up where the police districts are with the data, we can work out how in the central business district in Cincinnati, it gets really, really busy and a lot of incidents. But what you'll find is that there's also clusters of incidents out in the suburbs. But then I thought, well, let's see if I was to introduce health facilities in Cincinnati, how would they be affected? For example, if the incident was close to a health facility, how many patients would likely be referred off to their nearest health facility? So again, by using the same technique as we did for the Hawaii analysis, we're able to find where the nearest health facility is and then work out how many patients would end up at that health facility. And again, with the introduction of demographics, what we can do is we can see what the trends are like and the hotspots are like by using the Tableau density mark type. We can see what the trends are in certain neighborhoods. Are they going up or going down over time? And then, again, like Hawaii, we looked further into block level demographics. We can see which type of person in that area is being affected the most. So for the example that we're showing here, we can show the gender breakdown, and we can also show the racial breakdown.
Cool. So that was, anything else on that one, Alan? Sorry, before we go ahead.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, thanks. All right. And so our next example, this one was actually based in New Orleans. That's where the Tableau conference was last year. And looking at kind of emergency planning or capacity planning so we can better understand our infrastructure and whether or not it's able to serve those in need. And so what we looked at was emergency shelters. And we all remember, oh, this was just so you knew where we were at the convention hall in New Orleans. And you could quickly see where your nearest evacuation facility was. And again, everyone remembers in Katrina that there just wasn't enough capacity for people in these shelters. And so we looked at where was the nearest evacuation center, and again, using those buildings and the distance calculation, how far it would take you to get from a building to one of those evacuation facilities. But again, I asked, well, what's the use case? And so we came up with this concept of, well, are there enough lifeboats? Is there enough capacity in these facilities, and who will get them? And so the assumption is people will rush to their closest facility. And so if we can, again, bring in that demographic information and those population counts, we can then get an estimate of the number of people likely to go to that shelter facility and seek help. And with that in Tableau, we're able to understand who might be turned away. And if you can see, we're looking at the FEMA recommended space in square meters for people at an evacuation facility. And if you imagine in a movie theater, it's, you're looking at, I think it was 0.4 square meters per person, and that's really minimal. That's you sitting in a movie theater. So if you imagine you're sleeping there, you're eating there, you're trying to entertain your kids there, that is a really, really tight space to allocate to a person. And most of these facilities, given all the people that rushed to them, would have far less than that. And then we also just looked at, well, who would be turned away at that theater capacity, at that really bare bones minimum capacity, and then who would be turned away at the actual FEMA minimum capacity that they recommend. So again, based on our understanding of the buildings and the population and being analyzed, this route of how people would get to a facility and who is likely to go to a facility, we can better plan our infrastructure and hopefully expand our capacity of our different shelter options in the future. All right, our next example is from finance and information security. And again, we start with dots on a map. And Alan, you started off, please.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Anya. What we did was we had all of these dots on the map, and what I wanted to do was work out which dots were in certain banks. Now, that led to a really great analysis, because what we're able to do is find out, by intersecting the data with the buildings, what we can do is we can see where exactly inside that building people moved and where they were and the time they were at that dot on the map. That means we can do some really cool analysis, like saying, you know, was that same device, the same mobile phone at other branches or ATMs? And if we join the data with the transaction data, if the time matches as well, then you can start doing some really interesting fraud detection.
Cool. Alan, what's fraud detection?
Fraud.
Oh, fraud detection.
My froggy voice.
I was like, what? All right, cool. And so again, we have that information, but we also have our own information that we can mash up. So of course we know the blueprint of our building, hopefully. And so this was kind of an example of a bank branch, but hopefully you can imagine it as a healthcare facility, because I think it's applicable as well. And we can understand seeing those devices, and we can start to discern patterns and try and get an idea of who is in our building and what they are doing and where they are going. And so, for example, we can look at device persistence. So as part of a healthcare facility or a bank, you might have devices that are continually on or expected to be on during certain times of day. So suddenly we can monitor those devices on the Wi-Fi or on a cellular connection and try and look at these patterns of devices and see patterns that are anomalous. So for example, a device that's continually on even after hours, or a device that just suddenly appears once and then disappears and we never see it again. We can also do things like potentially look at support staff. So here was just an example where you might have folks that are coming in before the start of day or at the end of the start of day. Maybe they're doing maintenance work or cleaning or other support services. And so you can understand if they're there at anomalous times of day, or potentially if they're in restricted areas where they really shouldn't be. And you can also use this type of information to understand customer traffic patterns. So we can look where it is that customers are going throughout the day and maybe reorganize the way our building is laid out in a more convenient way. Or we might understand customers that are just sitting there for a long period of time and proactively go out and see that person is there waiting. How can we address their needs so we can get them so they're not just sitting there all day? Right, so we can better address our customer needs by understanding this traffic and looking at customer behavior. And we can also, of course, for InfoSec, look at devices that are just in naughty places where they're not supposed to be. I see stuff coming up in I think it's the chat, so just a reminder to put stuff in QA. And then here's one more scenario. I think this is our last scenario, and it's in retail. And we're looking at where to expand or where to locate our offices, or in this case, we're looking at coffee stores relative to our competition. So again, we start with dots on a map. And these are, well, Alan, he found the data, so I'll let him go at it.
Yeah, so the example we used was in Massachusetts. We did all of Massachusetts. So every building, and then what we did was, Massachusetts is quite interesting because it has up to 5 of the coffee retail chains. So, you know, Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, Pete's, Timmy Hortons, and I can't remember the other one. But basically, what you're seeing here is what's called a Veroni, which is basically like the area nearest your competition. And then from that, what we can do is we can work out the kind of share. So we can see how many buildings are closest to the different organizations.
Cool. And then we, again, back to like, well, what's the use case? And so we kind of likened it to the game of Risk, where you're trying to kind of take over the world. And so what we wanted to do is, looking in that map, figure out where could we put new locations in order to expand. And in this case, I'm pro Pete's, anti-Dunkin' Donuts, so I'm hoping to turn the whole map green. And yeah, Alan and I had I think we had a fight about Dunkin' Donuts not being coffee. Anyhow, so, and also looking, we can understand, again, once we mash up our customer data and our customer information, we can see these green dots right in the middle of purple territory. And we might have information about those customers because they have the app on their phone and they check in every time they order their cup of Pete's. And so we can further incentivize them to draw them further out of their neighborhood to our location because we appreciate them making that travel trip. Or we can look at it and say, well, here are all these customers that we know of that are loyal customers. This might be the next place to put our branch because we already know that there's a population there that would be delighted to not have to go as far to get their fabulous cappuccino. Cool. Anything else on that one, Ellen?
Nope, all good.
All right, cool. And so we kind of want to inspire you to do your turn. Most of all the stuff that we used was open source. Again, Tableau we hopefully all have, and QGIS is open source. Alan, I'll let you talk about Mapbox since that's your baby.
Yeah, sure. So you'll notice in the new version of Tableau in the beta, and I think it's coming out of beta very shortly. And if you've been using Tableau online or Tableau Public recently, you'll notice that there's new vector maps. These have been really updated, which is super cool. And we have a load of, or basically everything that you saw that we did is available in Tableau Public. So now you can see that Mapbox and Tableau work really well together.
Cool. Tippecanoe, you gonna keep going?
Yeah. So, with Tippecanoe, this is the real breakthrough for Tableau users. I think it's really important to understand that for the first time, it doesn't matter how many customers or patients that you've got, whether it's 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000, you can visualize all of them. There is absolutely no need to aggregate your data anymore with a map. So, if you're, I don't know, somebody like Kaiser Permanente or the NHS, and you're having to work at scale, you would use Tippecanoe, which again is an open source piece of software, to create and generate all of your tiles for Mapbox, and then you can import that straight into Tableau. The other thing that's kind of important, if you're working with HIPAA compliant data, or you have PII, personal information difficulties, or you have to comply with that, but you still want to put patient address, patient name, patient ID details on your map, you can do that securely with Mapbox Atlas, which works absolutely seamlessly with Tableau, and it's 100% on-premise, secure, all the rest of it. So now you can do it. Now you can do everything with the map, and you can start answering the where, why matters question.
Cool. Yay. Cool. And we could take questions now, or I just had a new blog post yesterday, and so I wanted to show off if I have 5 little minutes to do so.
Yeah, let's show off.
Yay! All right, so something totally different, not really related to why where matters, but it's related to focusing on what matters. We just kind of put this blog post up, yesterday. And it's this concept of using lighting in order to convey criticality and where the user should focus their attention in dashboards. Oh, sorry. If I hit the, does it go? Yay, there you go. There's my little animation. So you can see as the spark lines are moving throughout the time of day, the user's attention is focused on metrics that are deviating from their expected value, but then those deviations are further weighted by the criticality of that metric. Okay? So if we look at a standard dashboard, we usually see something like this, where we have a KPI, we have a target, we have a deviation from target, and then maybe some supporting bar charts or things that show us what that deviation might be attributable to. But what we're doing is asking the user to bring in their own knowledge and say, well, I see that this staff on calls is down and it's a little bit below the target line. But what does that mean? What is the impact on my business because of that value being off of target, right? And so our standard way to draw the user's attention or to create emotion or a sense of urgency on the dashboard is usually relegated to maybe like a little red dot at the end of the spark line or an up and down arrow. But I would argue that these deviations from the target do not have the same impact. So a breach in InfoSec of 1 is very different than us being off $1 in our sales target or our revenue. And so if you look at the dashboard side by side, the version with lighting is much easier for the user to interpret. Instead of having to look at the values and try and create the relationship, the lighting instantly pops, oh, there's an emergency call and we're a little bit low on staff to be able to deal with that call. So I can instantly see the most critical thing happening is that there's an emergency and it might be impacted by the fact that there's a low amount of staff on the call. So it really using that lighting as a cue kind of creates a canvas as a whole or a story a whole and draws the user's attention and focus to those metrics that are critical at this point in time. And so just a couple of examples. So again, here we have this dashboard and we're asking the user to gauge the distance between the metric versus the target value and really use some knowledge not present in the dashboard based on their subject matter expertise to interpret the impact of those metrics being off to their business. And then if you compare that to the view with lighting, it really pops the story of there's a lot of calls being dropped and there's a lot of staff on idle that are not handling these calls. So instantly I can understand the relationships and the impact of the KPI by using this weight of criticality and drawing the user's focus to it using this lighting technique. And here's just another example. So in the traditional version, I see some, there's some KPIs that are red. But if I add the weight of criticality in this example, they're actually not that far off. And in this case, there's no lighting because I really don't necessarily need to pay attention to it. So I can monitor it, but the lighting is letting me know that there is nothing critical going on. So again, just by glancing quickly at the dashboard, I get not just what's going on with my KPIs, but what is important. And I know the colors I picked were from the Spider-Verse, the Spider-Man animation movie, which is spectacular. Some of the most beautiful colors in animation I've ever seen. And that was just to make the point and be dramatic and look great on Twitter. But here I've actually taken that lighting concept and I'm just using the out of the box on the right, the Tableau turquoise to blue color ramp to create the lighting. And so this is probably more subtle, more something that you might use in a business environment, but you can really see this dashboard going from being flat to just popping and being warm and engaging and drawing your eye and telling the story. So yay, that's my latest little bit of Blicker glitter that I worked on with Noah Salvatierra. And so that is the end of our talk. And
thank you, everyone.
Yay, we'd love to hear questions and thanks for listening to us. Questions? Jordan or Simon or whoever's?
Hey, Anya, thanks, Alan. That was fair to say, fairly decent. Joking, it was absolutely outstanding. Thank you. It's just seeing what's the art of the possible is really inspirational, and certainly we've got a fair bit of questions for you. So one from Matthew. How did you apply the lighting?
Oh, it's a lot of math behind it, but basically in the, hold on, let me pop up the. So we actually laid a transparent sheet over the top of it and used that to calculate the X and the Y. So we're interpolating that, let's say this is 8 in the morning and this is 5 o'clock at night. We then say, well, in the entire pixel grid, this is an X of 20 of a min value and maybe a max value of 120 throughout the day. And so we then interpolate the time of day in between that pixel range of, say, 20 and 120 to give us the X points. And we do the same with the Y, with potential values for the Y. And basically, we are just drawing a line from the origin to wherever the point happens to be at that point in time. So that's the slope. And that gives us the centroid of the X and Y for the center of the light point. And then there's just a radius calculation that changes the pixel color scored from like a low value to a high value, the distance that that XY is from that centroid point. And it's, I know that sounds crazy, but if you go to the blog at DataBlick, it's all written up there, so you can, and you can download the workbooks. If you go to my public profile, you can download the workbooks and then just copy paste the calculations.
I was just laughing because I was like, thank God you've got the blog.
Okay.
No, that was awesome. Thank you. We got a question from Ben. I think this one's for possibly both of you. What data sources were used for the device persistent example, including both the device's pinging and the floor plan layout?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? Where we got the file?
What data sources were used for the, I think for this example, and the floor plan layout from the next page as well?
So Alan, you can talk to the dots. This was made up, but I have done a lot of work in InfoSec, and I'd have to kill you if I told you. But this is just
the dots for the Manhattan slide. These were garnished from Safegraph, and on the there's lots of providers that you can get that data from, like Skyhook. There's a ton. So, yeah.
And I've done work for organizations that actually provide detection for devices and look for nefarious things going on. So this is a made up example, but it's based off of stuff that's very much done in the real world.
Cool. And the last one before we hand over to Patrick. Do these extra programs, Mapbox, QGIS, etc., need to be configured at the server level to use them in published reports? No, is the short answer. QGIS is a desktop program. There's a Windows, Mac version. There's a Linux version as well, I'm sure. There are servers for QGIS, but you need to configure a server. Mapbox Studio is a web, a cloud platform, although Atlas is a server and it does need configuring. Cool, thank you. Yeah. And lastly, I think, Anya, did you say that the workbook examples are available on, some of these workbook examples are available in Tableau public profile?
Not from, the ones from the healthcare, or these are on Alan's, the Cincinnati, right, okay. Yep.
Yeah, if you go, another quick way to do it is to go to mapbox.com/Tableau and scroll down on that page. You'll see that there's links to all of the examples. Fab. Thank you, Alan. It feels a bit wrong. I guess we should be the ones giving you presents, but it feels like you've just given us presents for the last 40 minutes. So thank you for that.
Thank you for letting us present. Yay.
And just one thing, just on the chat window, there's a question from Ben asking what kind of clients want your type of services. Maybe that's just an appropriate one to answer just directly in the chat so we can hand over to Patrick.
Okay. I'll get on chat.
Cool. Thank you, Anya.
Thank you.
Alan, sorry. Cool. So next up, good luck following that one, is Patrick. Patrick Byrne, who is a Tableau customer support manager, success manager, supporting the community. So if anyone's been active on Tableau forums or on Twitter, you will no doubt have come across Patrick. Also publishes some of the awesome community digests that get released every week. And Patrick will be telling us about how to leverage the power of community forums.
All right, thank you for that introduction, Simon. I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen here. This is definitely going to be a difficult presentation to follow, as it always is with Anya and Alan, giving us some amazing information about Tableau and the maps. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about leveraging the community forums. So as I'm introduced, I'm Patrick Byrne. I'm Customer Solutions Program Manager. This is my email. If you ever have questions or concerns or want to get in touch with me, feel free to reach out to me.
Your slides aren't showing yet.
Oh, they are not, are they?
Sorry.
No worries. Thank you for stopping me. Gotta love presentation stuff, right? Now, are we seeing the presentation?
Yeah,
Yep.
got it, Patrick.
Excellent. Okay, so back to this. So yes, leveraging the community forums. So this is my email, pburn@tableau.com. So if you have any questions, concerns that come from this presentation, or anything that comes up about community stuff that you'd like to reach out to me about, feel free to shoot me an email. And then this is my Twitter handle, @datadiplomat. Feel free to tweet at me whenever you like. Direct message me if you have any questions that you don't want the entire Twitter sphere to take a look at. So quick agenda. I'll go through a little bit about who I am, a little bit more about my background. Go through some first steps on getting started in this forum. Go through some resources in our Getting Started section. Take a quick tour of the forums, and then we can start going into questions. And I would like this to be somewhat interactive, so feel free to shoot questions over in the Q&A as I go through this if you have any. So I have been with Tableau for 3 years, 5 months, and 9 days. I graduated from Washington State University. It's the university on the eastern side of Washington, so go Cougs. I've been a community forums manager for 1 year and about 9 months now. I help manage our @Tableau support social support channel. So @Tableau support is where you can tweet any questions that you might have about our product or issues that you're incurring with our Tableau Online service. And then I'm also a Tableau Foundation Community Council member. This is a pretty cool part of my job that I really like to kind of highlight every once in a while. This is where I get to actually help our foundation, which is our nonprofit wing, decide where we should donate money or support organizations within our localized community, which here is the Fremont region. So first steps is logging in. So I know you're all sitting at your computers, sitting at this webinar. Take 30 seconds, the minute, hop into the community. So it's community.tableau.com and go ahead and log in. If you've signed in before at the tableau.com site, you'll be able to log in with that account. You'll just need to click the login button down here in the right above the resources tab and not the sign in up at the very top. And then you can use your tableau.com account to sign into the community. What you would also need to do if you haven't ever signed into the website is to go ahead and create that account, and that button can also be found once you click login, or as you can see, it's also right there on the front homepage if you haven't created an account or signed in yet. So I'm going to give everybody just a few seconds if everybody wants to go ahead and hop in, log into that account. If you haven't created one, I might suggest waiting until after the presentation because it will need to verify your email. So that might take a few minutes, especially as everybody knows, email is not always the fastest. Okay, so after you've logged into the forums, the the front page will change just a little bit. It'll open up this one little box down the right-hand side of the search that says new to the forums. There we have a link called Get Started. That link is going to take you out to a section of the community forums that is chock full of resources for anybody who is new to the forums, or maybe just haven't done a lot of participation within the forums, or really, created a post before or anything of that nature. Okay, sorry, getting distracted by the chat there. Okay. So now that we've kind of logged in, we've seen some of the quick resources on the front page, I want to go ahead and actually just pop into the forums itself. So let's go ahead and take a tour. So I'm going to hop out of my presentation here. And please forgive me if you have tab anxiety. There's a lot of tabs open on this. Hopefully it doesn't stress you out too much. So going into our main page, as I said, we have the getting started here, and this will lead us right into the great resources for getting you started within our community. Some great required reading here. I would definitely take a look through all of these, especially our Tableau forum guidelines. We try to keep our forum clean, friendly, and helpful. So make sure you're following our guidelines there. Please also check the advertisement policy, as well as the community etiquette guide. One thing I do want to highlight here, especially because we're talking with healthcare people here today, is within our package workbooks when, why, and how document, we have some good information about actually anonymizing data for when you're sharing it and sharing package workbooks and you can't have that data shared. So one quick note here, definitely whenever you're creating a post within the community forums, one of the best things to do is to attach a package workbook. As Alan and Anya showed, Tableau is very much a visualization product. It's a very visual product. It's a very visual issue. You run into very visual issues, and it's very much a thing that's easier to help and assist people when you're actually working within the product itself versus trying to answer their questions just over text or just via screenshots. This gives you some great information about when, why, and how you should do that. I do want to highlight down here where we have a section about anonymizing the data. So right in here, there's another document that talks about how you can go ahead and anonymize your data. It has a quick video about how to do it. That was actually created by a community member, Joe Opelt. And Joe Opelt is one of our amazing Tableau forum ambassadors. So moving on. So after we have you gotten through all this getting started stuff, you're feeling pretty good, but now you need to figure out or find a particular solution, or you're looking for some particular information about either a product or possibly a service offered by Tableau. Now the forums is broken down in a few different sections. One of the sections I'm sure you're very familiar with is the user group section. The user group section, of course, is broken down into a few different areas of local, industry, topic, and Tableau. Local, of course, are the ones based off of the location of the user group. So we have ones for Seattle, London is another big one. There's a North New England one as well that's fairly popular. Then, of course, we have the industry ones, as you are attending an industry Tableau user group virtual meeting right now for the healthcare industry. And then, of course, we have Tableau-based ones such as the Data Plus Women group and other groups of that nature. So if you're not a part of a localized user group yet, I always encourage people to go get part of localized user groups. Even though you are in healthcare industry and healthcare data, there is probably somebody within your local user group also doing the same stuff and could be a good partner with you to develop and build your Tableau skills. Now moving into the more product specific spaces of the community forums. So where we went here is we're actually just in the forum space and we're going into our server admin space here. Now the server admin space is a great space for anybody to get information or questions answered about Tableau server and really administrating that whole space itself. This has to do with anything from upgrades to scaling to the permissions, and even farther than that as far as like into more of the monitoring and sometimes even talking about our admin views as well. Some great resources here. I would definitely check out the list of resources linked in the front page, in the front of the Tableau server admin page, as well as if you're getting ready to upgrade, I would definitely check out our upgrade page, which is actually hosted on the tableau.com site, but it is chock full of amazing information. Our support team is always looking to update this. They're constantly adding new information that they get from feedback from either support cases or through users reaching out to us in various different mediums. Moving on, we also have a space for Tableau Online. Tableau Online is our hosted version of Tableau Server where you can go ahead and post and share your visualizations. Many people are starting to leverage Tableau Online across the industry. This space is particularly for people leveraging Tableau Online. People can come together, discuss issues with Tableau Online, talk about how to maintain data. Freshness is a big one that people discuss on here. Again, there's some amazing Tableau Online resources and some great content, especially from some of our marketing team members and as well as fellow community managers such as Kira. Then we have our Tableau Prep space. So this is for all your Tableau Prep conductor and builder questions. So anything you have to do with Tableau Prep, this is a good space to come receive help, possibly answer questions if you are already an experienced user of Tableau Prep, as well as interact with the developers who are building the Tableau Prep product. The Tableau Prep development team does actually monitor this space fairly heavily, and they do take into consideration any of the feedback that they receive about this tool. Tableau Prep is released in a very, very quick cadence, so they're always looking to upgrade and update the product. It does get released fairly often, and they're always releasing brand new updates that are just like blowing the last update out of the water. So I always encourage people to stay on the latest version of Tableau Prep as well as monitoring the space, and please interact, post, feel free to engage with anybody in the space. If you have any questions, a good person to reach out to would be Anushka, as you can see here. She's an amazing PM who's been working with our prep space for a while. Okay, I just want to check this question real quick. Okay. Moving on here. Another amazing space, and this might be a little bit more interesting to everybody on the call here, is the developer portal or the developer forums. In the developer forums, there's a lot of information and a lot of different pieces of content within here that I would definitely go and start taking a dive into if you're kind of like looking at how to leverage the APIs of Tableau, Tableau's SDK, our web data connector, or possibly our ODBC connection. All these different spaces link out to either different portions of the community itself, or we'll link out to the GitHub space that hosts the code for, say, the document API. This space is really great for kind of coming together, talking and discussing about issues that you might have with Tabmon, or deploying the Tableau SDK, or possibly leveraging the JavaScript API for embeds, or the REST API. Doing some modifications with the document API. This is a great resource to kind of like come together, put your head together with another person who's also engaging in this space, and really kind of like delve into some of the more difficult issues and topics of the Tableau APIs. Another interesting space that is fairly new to the Tableau community is the Tableau external services. Now, as I know Alan knows, Tableau can actually call some external services such as R, Python, and MATLAB to help support these services and people working with this with these services, we've created this space. There's a lot of great people in here doing some really cool stuff with R and MATLAB and Python. So definitely come in here, check this out if you're interested in that. If you've had experience with R and Python before, this is a great way to leverage that experience within Tableau and still bring that knowledge and experience you have with those programming languages and apply it into your new Tableau skills. Michael. Yes, Michael. There is both a instructor, a Tableau instructor or a Tableau teacher / instructor community, as well as the healthcare community, which I will get to in just a second. Another amazing space that I want to highlight here is our idea space. Now, Tableau, we take the feedback that we get about our product very, very seriously, and we always want to hear what you as the user of Tableau want to do with our product. We want to make sure that we're developing and driving and promoting the best features that are going to help our customers be the most successful. One of the ways we do that is we actually use Tableau to analyze the ideas that we are receiving from you, the customers, and the users of Tableau. Here we actually, in our idea space, we have our ideas viz that can show you, here it's actually showing the last 12 months of all the different ideas that have been submitted by the community, as well as the number of votes that they've received. You can also check out the different ones that we've released over the last years. And this is really headed up by my cohort over in Dublin, Kiara Brennan. She's doing an amazing job of driving this area and making sure that we're coordinating with our development resources to get these amazing and fantastic ideas that have been submitted and created over the years by you, our Tableau users. And I see Jordan is dropping some links in the chat for some people about the user groups if people need to grab that. Okay, another space I want to highlight in here as TC Europe is coming up, we do have a Tableau conference space. So this is a great space within the community. If you want to ask some questions about particular things with conference, or if you want to just get some information, we have it linked. We have the conference site linked out here. So a little shameless plug, conference is amazing. Please come down. You'll get to see me in person if you really want to. You can come tell me how terrible my presentation was, because it followed Anya and Alan's amazing presentation. Or you can come just chat with me, talk to me about anything in the community. It's always a fun time. We have some really cool events there. Data Night Out is always a blast. So if you can make it, definitely check out Vegas in November. Or for those out in the European area, European theater, I would check out the TC Europe if you have not yet. Okay, so for actual questions about conference itself, I'm going to go ahead and defer to the conference team. Please reach out to tcquestions@tableau.com. They'll be able to answer your questions about the training. Another quick insight is the conference team is still putting together a lot of trainings and stuff like that for the TC19 sessions. And I can't say a whole ton, just get excited, be ready. There will be communications to any of the attendees about how to sign up for your trainings and or find trainings or sessions and talks and stuff like that prior to conference. So stay tuned. But for now, I don't have a ton more updates on that. Okay, sorry, I need to move some bars around. Okay. As mentioned before, we have some amazing user groups all across the community space here. One of them, of course, is the healthcare user group. As you can see, it's community.tableau.com/groups/healthcare. So this is a kind of a catch-all space for, as you can see, Simon and Nicole own this space, as well as Jonathan is one of their co-owners, one of our amazing community members, Jonathan Drumming. As you can see, this is the healthcare space. This is actually completely owned by Nicole and Simon. They maintain all this amazing content. Jordan helps support them in some realms, but most of this amazing content all comes from them. So thank you, Nicole and Simon. I know this is a very, very well-maintained space of, group of the community, and you guys are always cranking out some amazing content for people in the healthcare industry. So if you're not already in this group, definitely you want to go ahead and join the group. So whenever after you do sign in, you can join the group using this fancy little button right here in the top right corner. Another little unknown button of the community forums that I think everybody should take note of is the follow button. And as you might have noticed, if you went to any of these spaces, you can actually click the follow button. Now what this will do is actually basically it will add this to your a stream, which is then fed into your inbox here. Of course, this inbox you can have configured to either email you every time you get a notification or not. I personally don't like having emails all the time, so I have that turned off. But I'm always in here checking mine, so that helps me. But when you click follow, you'll be able to go ahead and add it to your connection streams. And of course, this is going to not work for me right now, but it'll allow you to add it to a connection stream, which will then populate it into this inbox whenever you get new updates as far as new posts coming to this area, new activity. If there's updates or a new event is posted or changed or an announcement is posted, you'll get alerted within your inbox. So it's a good way to kind of stay up to date and make sure that you're not missing out of any of the good things in some of these spaces that you're highly interested in.
Cool. Thank you, Patrick. Was that everything from your side of it in terms of sharing?
Yes, I did have just one more thing here. And of course, things have moved around on me. If you haven't also checked out, I'll give you a little plug right now, Simon. If you haven't checked out the usergroups.tableau.com/virtual healthcare tug page yet, definitely check this out. This is where they'll also be posting updates about upcoming events. So always a great thing to check out there. Okay. And the last thing I just wanted to say is we do have a community account within the community forums. So in any of our posts or in any of your replies, you can go ahead and tag the community team using at the @ sign within any of the discussion posts, replies, fairly basic tagging feature, but use the @ sign community_team, and that'll pull up the Tableau community team. You can also always email us community@tableau.com. That will reach me and my partner in marketing, as well as you can always tweet at me at @datadiplomat. And with that, that is all I have. If anybody has any other questions, we can go ahead and answer those now.
So I think there's just one, Patrick, from Michael, who asked, what are best practices in the community in terms of asking questions and answering questions, or just really anything?
Yeah. So I'm going to refer back to one of my first sections that I showed off is our getting started in the forums. So this is going to be navigated to fairly quickly. So once you log in, it's going to be this button right here. Go ahead and click get started. And here, under required reading, we have a bunch of information about posting in the forums, what makes a good post, what doesn't make a good post. have some information about the direct messaging in the community. We have some great etiquette guides that have been actually written by members of the community. The at-mentioned etiquette guide was written by one of our phenomenal community ambassadors, Toby Erickson. So great piece of reading there. Also gives you some information about resolving issues in the community. So why didn't your question get answered? This is a great piece that kind of explains maybe why people weren't engaging with your posts to help you create a more engaging and more rich post for next time that you try to interact with the community.
Cool, thank you. So that's all of the questions from now. You might have a couple more come through on the chat window. You can probably type responses to Patrick. But just before we wrap up, we just wanted to open it up to everyone. If you wanted to, we'll just give you a minute or so just to share any final questions that you would like to ask any of the panelists or the host today. So that's myself, Nicole, Anya, birthday boy, Mr. Allen, or Patrick. So we'll just give it 1 minute, see if anyone says anything. If not, we will wrap it up and bring it to a close.
I guess while I have everybody still here, I'll show off one more thing. For those of you that might be a little bit more experienced with Tableau and are looking to actually start participating within the community and want to start helping or using your Tableau skills a little bit more to help people, I would check out the Crow's Nest. So it's going to be community.tableau.com/community/getting-started/Crow's Nest. I can go ahead and put that in the chat as well. But this is actually a viz that shows you all the currently unanswered posts within the community forums. So these are just posts that people haven't had a reply to yet. There's various different reasons that a reply might not have been dropped on a post yet, but this just gives you insight into what's going on. And this is actually a Tableau viz, so you can check that out. But this is a great place to kind of dig through some of those older posts or see which posts just haven't had an answer yet. If you have experience with any of these and you want to like throw your hat into the ring, maybe you deal with a lot of cubes, or maybe you possibly deal with our extract API quite a bit, feel free to hop in here and start replying to some of these amazing posts. And you can go ahead and pull up any of the posts by just clicking on the post itself within the community forum or within the viz.
Cool. So we just have one question, and I think we'll hand over to Nicole and we can wrap it up. So one question is from Austin, who asks, is Tableau Prep free with a default desktop license? Patrick, I don't know if you can answer that, but if not, maybe Anya could.
I can't answer off the top of my head because it does depend on the license that is. I wouldn't be able to speak exactly to the license that Austin is leveraging. Austin, please reach out to your account rep and discuss that in a little bit further detail. If you don't know your account rep, I can go ahead and connect you with them as well after this call if you want to send an email to pburn@tableau.com.
Thank you, Patrick. That was really inspirational, and I think it's fair to say there is absolutely shed load available in the forum. So please, everyone, do reach out and give it a play if you haven't already, and enjoy earning the points and the badges and seeing your profile grow as you connect and help people. So on that note, I would just like to say a massive thank you to Patrick, to Alan and Anya for presenting, for Jordan and her team for hosting and everything they do to give us the platform to host these user groups. And finally, I'll just hand over to Nicole to give it the last say before we close down.
Thank you, Simon. I echo everything you said. I also use the community forum sometimes to find events that are going on that are not, run by the user group, but maybe put on by Tableau. So please check out the event link that was on the Tableau community page, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you again in a few months.